So today we're going to be working on the next sort of block of content here on the Ukulele Foundations, where we're going to be talking about what I call melodic picking. Now, before we get into that, though, I wanted to open up for any questions that you guys might have regarding the things we've worked on. Just to kind of give a very quick recap, we started with some strumming concepts and basics, where we also talked about fretting chords and bar chords and such. And then we moved on to some finger picking techniques, including 3-finger picking, as well as what's called the 3-finger roll and 3-finger tremolo. And so does anyone have any questions with anything that we've worked on so far? Yeah.
Well, I get mine's not really a question. I understand the concept. It's just getting my fingers to do that. So the roll and the tremolo are, and then getting my thumb will want to do it'll want to go to the G string or the C string on its own instead of when I want it to.
Yeah, it's very normal to have those problems because truthfully, it's not a very intuitive motion. You know, it's not something that comes naturally to most people, myself included. And the most important thing you can do to make it feel comfortable and correct is to practice it really slowly. You know, whenever you're developing a new skill, by correctly processing it, you'll expedite that process. And what I mean by that is, if you're sitting there and you're practicing at a speed where you kind of end up going, oh shoot, I did the C again. Well, let's try that again. Oh, nope, did it again. There we go. Well, what happened there is in that little 5 seconds, I did it wrong twice, and I hesitated on the third to do it right. But that hesitation is actually wrong. It's still training your thumb to do incorrect motions. By slowing everything down to a speed that you can correctly understand what you're doing as you're doing it, you help just expedite the whole process. You know, it has something to do with the neuron pathways in our brain. And I can't go into the science there because I don't know anything about it. But what I do know is that working on things very slowly and methodically will allow them to be done quickly and methodically as well. So I suffer from this. I practice too fast all the time with everything I do because I want to have fun right then. But every time I slow down and just kind of take a step back, it can really help. One last tip with that is, if you're really struggling because it's kind of boring, you know, it's like, oh, I want to do the fun thing, set a timer, like just a 5-minute timer. And 5 minutes, you know, we can do anything for 5 minutes with that. It'll feel like an eternity. It's amazing how long 5 minutes can feel. If you're just sitting there for 5 minutes going, okay, thumb, middle, index, thumb move to G, middle, index. It's so slow, but doing that can really help. So I strongly recommend the slow-based practice and see if that helps. So are there any other questions that anybody has on any of the stuff that we've been working on to this point? No questions? Cool. Well, let's go ahead and start with melodic picking. So let's talk a bit about what I mean by this. Well, strumming, which is what we started with, and finger picking, which is what we've been working on the last couple of sessions, typically are used more as accompaniment to play the ukulele while also singing or playing for somebody else playing an instrument or whatever it might be. What we're going to be talking about the next 2 sessions is something that I call melodic picking. And while you can strum and use finger picking in this style, it tends to work best with the thumb, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it's also a mindset shift, because to this point, we've played the chords and a rhythm with the chords. And if we think about what makes a song, there's 3 different parts. There's what we call harmony, which we can also call the chords in this case. There's rhythm, which is the groove of the song. You know, we can think of that as our strum pattern or our finger picking pattern. But that actually misses out on the most important part of the song, which is the melody. The melody of a song typically is what's sang. If you listen to just, you know, a random song by a band, whatever the vocalist is singing is going to be the melody. And most songs are that way. While we have the melody being the forward piece, usually sang, sometimes maybe a trumpet or electric guitar or something will play it, but it's usually what you can hum along to and gives sort of a song its identity. And to this point, we haven't really done much with melody-based playing because the ukulele's role is usually to accompany the melody. Now, that works great if you enjoy singing. I personally, I don't enjoy singing that much. I'm not very good at it. I also I don't like doing it. I like the puzzle element of trying to play what I would sing on the ukulele while I'm playing the other parts too. That's just what appealed to me with this instrument and made it so much fun. But to do this, you kind of have to juggle now 3 different parts, because if you imagine somebody strumming and singing an ukulele, you can see each one of the parts represented. The rhythm is going to be in their hand doing the strum pattern or the picking pattern. The harmony is going to be the chords that they're playing in the left hand, and the melody is whatever they might be singing. But if we layer them all together, we want to introduce a couple new techniques. So what we're going to start with is what I call melodic picking. And that is using your thumb on your playing hand to kind of pseudo strum and pick more melodically. And we just talked about how melody is kind of vocal-like, right? So let's think of it almost as a lyrical picking, like we're trying to sing with our ukuleles. So to do this, we're going to take our ukuleles, and depending on your hand shape and your ukulele shape and size, it's going to be different for everybody. But the gist of it is I'm going to kind of cradle the ukulele with my fingers. I like to take my pinky finger and put it in this divot right here, just barely in there. It's not deep, just kind of rested. And then my ring finger and my middle finger are going to come on, and my index finger actually doesn't quite touch. You can touch it. It's not a big deal. Again, everybody does this a little bit differently. So kind of find what's comfortable for you. And then take your thumb and place it to the A string, which is the one closest to the bottom. Place it at about a 45-degree angle, right about where the fretboard meets the body of the ukulele. And try to keep it with the nail pretty straight to the string. So you don't want to be too relaxed this way or too over the top this way, but with the nail pretty much right in next to that string. And then what you're going to do is you're going to keep this right here pretty straight and use the back part of the thumb to pluck that A string. And it should sound and look something like this. Now, if you haven't done this before, it might sound clunky, it might sound off, and that's okay. But a few notes is you'll notice that my thumb is not hooking and pulling out the string at all. It's keeping it nice and recessed to get this really nice, rich tone. And it's using the back of the thumb, which is more inefficient, but it's more powerful. And it gives you this really fat, nice tone. And when you listen to the best ukulele instrumentalists, meaning the best people who play the ukulele and don't do anything else, maybe they don't sing, they just play melodies on the ukulele, this technique is very common to be used. This is kind of our voice. Now, it's okay to move the thumb back a bit, move it to different angles, different approaches. All of these different things will give you different tones. And it's important to play around and find what you like, what your ukulele likes. But this is a good sort of starting point as you're working on this. Now, we're doing this on the A string to start. Let's go ahead and move to the E string and learn what we need to do with this to make it even better. So if I pluck my E string, watch what I do. You'll actually notice my thumb does what after it plucks the E string? It actually rests on the A string. This is called a rest stroke. Now maybe I'll do the C string. You'll see that it's still doing, again, that rest stroke of trying to play the C string, resting on the E. And I'll do it on the G as well. Once again, resting on that next string. In the world of classical guitar, you'll hear this technique called a rest stroke because the finger is actually resting on the next string. And what's nice about it is it lets you dig in a little bit deeper because the next string will kind of stop you as you're going through. This can get you an even fatter tone as you're doing it. And although you can't do the rest stroke with the A string, you can imagine that there's a string right underneath there that you're kind of going into. And while it doesn't give you the feedback quite the same way, just thinking about it can really be helpful. So let's go ahead and try playing each of our 4 strings. Let's start on the G. And if you're playing a low G, it'll be a different octave, but it still works. Let's try playing the C, the E, and the A. Now, I mentioned when I started talking about this technique that we're going to kind of hybrid pick and strum. Well, right now we're just picking, right? But what if we were to use the thumb to play through multiple strings together? Well, that's absolutely an option. So let's start on the G and let's try strumming through all 4 strings. The position is still the same. The form is still the same. Just as I'm doing these rest strokes, instead of letting it stop on a string, I just kind of follow all the way through. This is a great method to get this fat, juicy tone when you're playing whatever chord it might be. It's the chord progression from their very first lesson. I'm just strumming through again and again, and you can hear how much richer that is than going like this. Right? This is a little bit more brittle of a sound. Certainly not a bad sound, just different versus this. Being so fat and thick, and that's what makes this such a unique technique. It really is what helps us find our voices when we're playing the ukulele. Much like everybody's singing voice is different, everybody using this technique will get a different sound as well. And if you get really tuned with listening to different players, you could just put on a recording and immediately recognize what player it is just based on the tone that they're getting, just like you could recognize your favorite vocalist singing a song. Now, we don't just go all the way across or just with single strings, we can also double up on strings. So for instance, we can do our E and our A. Put the thumb on the E, start there, and just go through those two. We could also do maybe the C and the E. Put the thumb on the C and just do the C and the E. You see I'm stopping on the A string. It's a little challenging, but it's well worth it to get comfortable with this concept. Maybe I just do the G and the C. Maybe I do the G, C, and E, stop on the A. Or all four. That control with the thumb leads to some really, really cool things. And so you could call this melodic picking. You could call this thumb picking. You could call it rest strokes. There's a lot of different names, but really what this is for is that melodic style. Now, right now we're just playing random strings. It's not exactly very melodic. So let's learn the easiest melody thing you possibly can. And if you've worked on some of my other classes, you might have seen this taught before, but it never gets old to me. And that is how to play a blues solo with just one string. So what's really cool about this is your ukulele has 4 different strings. And when you're playing one string individually, you're only going to be playing one note at a time. There's a term for this. It's called monophonic. The ukulele is typically what's called a polyphonic instrument, which means multiple notes at the same time. But we're working at playing it more monophonically, meaning one note at a time. So we're going to focus on just playing one string and not pay attention to the other 3. Let's go ahead and start this exercise with our A string. So let's go and play the open A string. And to make our blues solo, what we're going to do is add any order of notes just looking at our ukulele and seeing where the markers are. So if you look at my ukulele, they've got these numbered markers. Yours very likely will have markers in the same places. It might not have as many markers as mine, but the markers typically on an ukulele will be on frets 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, and 15. Sometimes you might even have more or less, but they're almost always on these same sort of numbers. Now, if you play your A string on any one of those markers, you get a very bluesy sound just by doing that. And it doesn't matter what order you play them in. You could jump around. It sounds pretty cool and bluesy. Remember that as you're working on this, less is more. It's really easy to try to do a lot, and we'll talk more about that as we go through. But just with this, we can start playing melodically while somebody is maybe playing a chord for us to try to solo with. Now, the chord that you can solo with is an A7. That's just the index finger here on the first fret of the C string. I'm going to play this chord now, and I want you to try to play a solo. There's no wrong note here. If you're just playing the notes that have the markers, it's going to sound good. Less is more. Don't worry about playing lots of notes. Just try to play a few and get comfortable with them. And let's go ahead and see how this sounds. Should be something like this. So go ahead and join in whenever you're ready and comfortable. I'm just going to play the A7 while you solo. 2 and 3 and 4 and... incredible how simple that is to just immediately get something that you're doing? And what's great about this is this solo could literally be done with one finger, right? You could just use one finger going up and down the string if you wanted to, and you could just use that one finger on that A7, and with, you know, a total of 2 fingers, people can be playing a duet, which is pretty awesome. But it's a really fun way to start getting comfortable with this melodic picking style. And again, it's monophonic, meaning a singular voice. And that's very different than some of the things we've worked on to this point, because it gives us a very different sound as we're practicing, right? But what's fun about this is when you're doing the solo, you can start thinking of it as if you're singing something. So I keep calling it melodic picking. Well, it's very lyrical, and lyrical is what we do with our voices. We create lyrics and sing them. So let's make up a melody just real quickly here with this blues thing. Let's think, well, right now it's April, so spring is coming. So maybe we're getting excited for summer. So let's write a little summer blues, line here. So let's say that I am so excited for summer. All right, let's say that's our musical line. I am so excited for summer. Well, what's the rhythm to what I'm saying? Is it I am so excited for summer? That's not right at all, right? There's no, that sounds awful, doesn't it? And the reason is very simple. It's because I'm giving every syllable I'm saying equal temperament with what I'm playing. And that's not how words work, and that's also not how melodies and music work. So if I'm going, I am so excited for summer, that has a rhythm of I am so excited for summer. It's got this unique da 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 da. I don't even think that was right, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. It's getting comfortable with saying something through what you're playing. And if I just play that on my open A string, I am so excited for summer, that already is so much more interesting than just playing your A string open 4 times or 8 times in equal measure, right? I am so excited for summer. Now, the thing is do I say it like that? Do I go, I am so excited for summer? No, it's not monotone, right? It has fluctuation to it. And this fluctuation can be all sorts of things. Maybe I want to go up. I am so excited for summer, right? I'm going up. That might be I am so excited for summer, right? You can hear what I did there as I played some low notes. I am so excited for summer. I'm going up the scale to create one sort of sound. Or maybe it's, I am so excited for summer. You can hear there, I started high. I am so excited for summer. And maybe go down from there. Maybe we go up and down. I am so excited for summer. Or we go back down. I am so excited for summer. There's truly limitless options with this. Even just playing your open A string using just the notes that have markers to them. So what I challenge you to do is make up a sentence similar to this. Less is more, make a very easy statement, and try to make a solo using this concept, and try to be more melodic with what you're playing, more lyrical, just playing that one note at a time. Let's go ahead and try this. So find a little itty bitty phrase. It could be 2 words, it could be 15 words. It doesn't really matter. Just try to think of something. I'm going to start playing this A7 chord again, and I want you to try to play what your solo is along with me. Let's go ahead and give this a go. 2 and 3 and 4 and lots of fingers moving. This is awesome. And if it helps, you can sing what you're playing too. Very, very cool. This is my favorite way to start playing more melodically and to start introducing this concept into your playing. This is a very simple way of doing it. We're only doing one string with, just the notes that have markers on them, playing it with our thumb. But it's one of the best ways to get some instant results, and I think that makes it a lot of fun. Now, let's say A isn't a good key for you to solo in for some reason. Maybe your friend playing guitar doesn't know an A7 and they only know an E7 chord for some reason. Well, the good news about this concept is you actually now know how to solo in 4 different keys for the blues. We just did the A blues, playing that A string. We can do the exact same exercise on our E string. And now we are playing in the key of E blues. So if somebody is strumming an E7 chord, go ahead and try playing on your E string now, using the same positions. 0, 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, if you want to go all the way up there. You could also just play 0 and 3 and 5. Introduce a little bit more. Pretty cool to start creating that sound. Now, as far as the technique with the thumb goes, remember, we want to be using that rest stroke. And it's perfectly shown here because you want to make sure you're plucking the E string and stopping on the A string. And that makes it so that you don't make that A string accidentally ring out. But let's go and try it with E for just a moment. 4 and... Notice it's the same exact thing. Now, what if you want to play in a different key? Well, you can also do it in the key of C, using the C string. I like this one because it's really deep and boomy. So let's go ahead and give that a go, using the C string, again with that same rest stroke. 2 and 3 and 4. Cool, right? And there's one more there. It's the G string. This is the hardest one. Truthfully, we don't really solo with our G string very often. It's just kind of awkward because it's so high up there. But let's go ahead and give it a go. I'm going to play a G7. We're going to solo in the key of G now. 2 and 3 and 4 and... So remember, we're still just playing that G string. Play 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, and 15. To create those sounds. Pretty cool, right? There's 4 keys you're soloing in the blues with. And if you've never done that before, it's super exciting. And if you have done it before, this is a great way to teach other people, especially kids, how to start soloing on the ukulele by just teaching them, 4 chords and 4 different positions, and they're ready to go. It can be a lot of fun. But this is the core concept of this melodic picking. And what this is using that thumb to articulate these notes more individually, much like a vocalist would sing them. And if you think about it, a vocalist can't sing more than 1 note at a time. Well, I guess there's some ways with like throat singing and things, but we're not talking about that right now. A vocalist really can't sing more than 1 note at a time. And the ukulele is usually playing 4 notes at a time. Sometimes though, the best way we can connect with music is to slow it down and take away and just play those individual notes. And you can really start to hear your musical voice come out of the ukulele. From here, what we're going to talk about is using this melodic bass picking and applying chords to it and starting to weave everything together. And that will be our final lesson here in the first quarter of Ukulele Foundations. We'll start talking just a little bit about chord melody, meaning taking this melodic picking and putting chords to it, which is my personal favorite way of playing. And if you're interested in more of that style too, that's where you'll find a lot of different content on my YouTube channel that will be that style. But we'll have more about that in our next session. For now, I want to see if there are any questions at all about this melodic style picking, playing some of these blues riffs with just our thumb, or any questions that you might have with this style. So any questions at all right now? Yes, June.
So when you get a tab and if it's one of yours or somebody else's, how do you know whether the best way to play it would be the way you just showed, or to do, some picking as well? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I like it one way, sometimes I like it the other.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And so, as we learn how to read tab and do things with that, it's usually not documented which technique should be used. One of the problems with ukulele content in general is you kind of have to interpret it. And I say it's a problem, but it's also kind of a fun puzzle too, because as you just said, sometimes you like to do one versus the other. And so the easiest way to tell if you should be thumb picking something or finger picking something is to try to identify, is it possible to do one or the other? So for instance, if a piece of tab has you playing the G string, the E string, and the A string all at the same time, thumb picking wouldn't work for that, because we can't just play this, this, and this all at once. The thumb is limited to only moving through. So that would have to be finger picking. But at the same time, if we see something that's played on like the A string a whole lot with chords going through it, maybe it's going like, that wouldn't work very well with finger picking, just because it's so clunky for the technique, because I'm having to kind of get everything in there and double up on the same string again and again, while the thumb really loves that. So there's no real way to just know. It's more trial and error and seeing what technique works better for you. But most of the song arrangements I do will kind of go between the techniques and be kind of compatible with both. But I will tend to use one more than another depending on the mood I'm in or what sound I'm trying to portray. Oftentimes when I'm teaching something, I'll use the thumb because it's easier to see. And then when I'm playing it, I might use finger picking because it helps me go a little faster. But it really just depends on the situation. So that's a really long answer. The short answer is look and scan the tab and see, can you use both techniques? Is it even possible to? And if the answer is yes, then it's, which one do you think will work better for that? When you have lots of strings represented individually, finger picking works best. When you have the A string primarily used with maybe strum throughs, the thumb works best. Yeah.
So is it okay to mix in a song?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just doing a lesson earlier today. I was working on an arrangement with a student of what song were we doing? Oh, we were doing Black Hole Sun, which is an awesome grunge tune. And we literally were going through it and we were writing when she should use thumb picking, when she should use finger picking, and when she should use strumming based on the arrangement she was wanting to make. And it was pretty cool to be like, okay, well, what do you think works best here? And as we look through a tab, we can kind of see, oh, it works best to pluck these individually with the fingers. But then later in the song, oh, it works much better to go through with the thumb to get that more melodic sound. So yeah, I greatly prefer doing both. Very cool. Any other questions at all? Awesome. Well, in our next session in 2 weeks, it'll be the final one of the Q1 of Ukulele Foundations, and we'll be introducing this chord melody concept, which is my personal favorite on the ukulele because that's what I like to play. But the goal here is not that one of these styles is, more important than the other. It's sort of finding what styles you enjoy. So if you really like this melody picking and strumming and picking is not as much fun for you, it's okay to pursue this more. But it's also okay if this isn't your jam and you like to do more strum patterns and picking patterns while singing. That's totally fine too. The ultimate goal is just to become a well-rounded player, so you have all the tools at your disposal, so you can pick whatever you want for whatever you're playing at that moment. But I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. As always, if you have any questions, if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to leave comments down below or shoot us a message, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much. La 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 la.